Alright, well, this is probably going to be a 2 or 3 part video. There's a whole lot of information. This all ties back to stuff I've been talking about for a very long time, since the NBA AStar week. So anyway, the Minnesota Timberwolves coach, Flip Saunders, dies at the age of 60. 60, very interesting. First thing that stuck out to me was 60. But let's look at the gematria of his name really quick. Flip Saunders. 144 and 54. Both numbers I've mentioned over and over and over. 144 ties in to the possible assassination of Obama. Maybe I'll leave a little tag with some extra 144 stuff over here or something. But it's just, there's so much to talk about. So anyway, also Flip Saunders adds up to 54. And I've been talking about iPet Go and Obama and the Cubs. And the Cubs got swept. It was almost like the mirror. Chicago Cubs adds to 91. The word mirror adds up to 91. Then you also had from like Back to the Future, Cubs is 45, Miami 45, Wrigley 45 where the Cubs play. The Cubs have been cursed since 1945 by a guy who died 45 years ago on October 22nd this year. Interesting, Flip Saunders is the mirror of 45. And there's more to that as well, but I'm going to move on here. So his full name is Philip Daniel Saunders, which adds up to 216 and 99. I'm not going to talk about the 99. 99 is the 252nd day, though. Lots of interesting things with it, but anyway, 216, 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. 216 stitches on a baseball. Obama was born on the 216th day of the year, and he turned 54 years old this year. Also, just in regards to mirror, think about his name, Flip. Kind of like when you mirror something, you flip it. So, who knows? Just a thought. Wanted to point that out. Anyway, like I said, what interested me the most was that he died at the age of 60. And there's been lots of 60 that have been in recent news. There's others than this. This is just a little list here. So we had Moses Malone, the basketball player who, Philadelphia 76er even, who died at the age of 60. His last name even adds up to 60. He died on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, Rosh 60, Hashanah 60. And on the 239th day of the year, so like a couple weeks before Moses Malone, another Philadelphia 76er died, Daryl Dawkins, at the age of 58. But Daryl Dawkins adds up to 60. You had the Hajj Stampede in Mina, Saudi Arabia, adds up to 60. You had the big earthquake, in Santiago, Chile, 60. These were all in the month of September. Even the worst ever recorded earthquake was in 1960. Interesting, we just had the worst ever recorded hurricane. But then you had this guy who announced the Hank Aaron when he beat Babe Ruth's home run record. He also died this year in September, and he adds up to 60. And then I've talked about all these Teen Wolf references and Nebraska Cornhuskers and Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War type theme, domestic violence they've been running in the news and whatnot. Abraham Lincoln adds up to 60. Also, Lincoln, Nebraska, where the Huskers play, adds up to 60. Interesting, too, you had with the death of Milo Hamilton, the PA announcer or the announcer, and with Nebraska, right before their first game, they had the whole dilemma with the PA announcers or whatever. The original guy got fired on August 6th. Then they hired this guy, and they fired him the next day on 9/1. I've been mentioning 91 a whole bunch lately, but 9/1, and then they got another guy to do it, Lane Grindle here. But 9/1 was also the same day that the Dean Jones, the actor from the movie Herbie the Love Bug, died. And Herbie is Nebraska Cornhuskers mascot. So I knew that Nebraska, they were going to code Nebraska. Also interesting to point out that 9/1 to the day that Flip Saunders died is a span of 54 days. And I talked about the key word in all of this is literally, it's the PA announcer. I've been mentioning Philadelphia a ton of times, and Pennsylvania, the abbreviation is even PA. And tons of stuff with Philadelphia. I mean, even literally Moses Malone and Darryl Dawkins both played for the Philadelphia 76ers. I had also talked about how it tied into Penn State, Pennsylvania State, and the Jerry Sandusky molesting boys thing, and how, because Jerry Sandusky, and that ties into the movie Tommy Boy, where he says Herbie Hancock, and the movie takes place, or where his company is from, is Sandusky, Ohio. Nebraska was even the first team that Penn State played after that ordeal. Another interesting thing is that the oldest NBA employee died this year, 106 days after his birthday. We've talked about the 106 and how it ties into 923 and the Philadelphia train wreck. And this guy just so happened to be the statistical guy for the Philadelphia 76ers. He's even the guy who did the stats for Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game. So interesting, he would also die this year. And his first name is literally Herbert, like Herbie. And there's a lot of other stuff that ties into the train wreck. 10-6 and 923 are the same day. Gregorian and Julian. The train wreck happened at 923. It was going 106 miles an hour. The engine number was 601. Even think about the Nicholas Winton guy who saved the Jewish children in World War II, I believe. He died at the age of 106 this year. You had the movie Trainwreck that came out with LeBron James. Tons of other stuff with that. Even the Marines on the train in France or wherever it was, Thales or however you say it. And then the same guy was actually from Roseburg, Oregon. And then we had the Roseburg, Oregon shooting that was on 10-1. And literally the word Philadelphia even adds up to 101, like 10-1. It all goes back to Pope Francis's visit as well. The last place he visited in the United States was Philadelphia. Philadelphia is in the book of Revelation. It's one of the churches in Revelation. Also, Philadelphia used to be the capital of Jordan, and it all ties back to Michael Jordan and Space Jam as well, which I'll get to. But it was called, the capital of Jordan was called Philadelphia until the year 106 AD, and then it was later destroyed by earthquakes. Anyway, to Flip Saunders here. So Flip Saunders, look at the day he was born, 2/23, the 54th day of the year. Remember, his name in Pythagorean gematria even adds up to 54. Flip Saunders, 54. But 2/23, it's like the backwards 322. Skull and Bones or whatever, even when you compare it to iPet Go, and the Chicago Cubs, the Curse of the Billy Goat is 2/23. We got Detroit's Goat was the little banner they made, 2/23. Even the Synagogue of Satan is 2/23. The Synagogue of Satan is the false Jews that they talk about in the book of Revelation. And the reason this is important here about the Billy Goat is because during the festival of Lupercalia, which is all about the sacrifice and the celebration of a wolf. And interesting, he's the coach and the president or whatever of operations for the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it's all about the wolf. During Lupercalia, they also sacrifice 2 goats. So they sacrifice 2 goats and a dog, or 2 goats and a wolf or whatever, in celebration of the wolf. So Flip Saunders, born on 2/23. Also, if you scroll down, you find out that he actually announced that he had cancer on August 11th of this year. It was announced that he had Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he was undergoing treatment, and then he ended up dying, whatever. But August 11th is the 223rd day of the year. So he announced his cancer on the 223rd day of the year, which led to his supposed death, and then he was even born on 2/23. Also, the 2/23 then is the mirror of the 3/22 that goes with the Skull and Bones as the Skull and Bones number. 3/22, well, Skull and Bones adds up to 41. Just like the Nebraska Cornhuskers defense, they're called the Black Shirts. And they even do the crossbones, the skull and crossbones, whatever. 41, Husker fans 41, Moses Malone 41, Saudi Arabia 41. Milo Hamilton is 60, but it's also 141. So the beers even Al-Qaeda or whatever is 41. Lots of other stuff. I even talked, about the Back to the Future stuff, and they're supposed to beat Miami. And I mean, just think about a lot of the stuff in the news about Miami recently. I guess in regards to sports is what I mean. You just had Miami yesterday, Miami University. They lost their 58-0. It was the worst loss they've ever had, or whatever. Interesting, it was 58, but I have a ton of stuff on that, but I'm going to keep it more simple here. I even made a video on the Nebraska Cornhuskers Miami football game, and it all ties into the Miami Dolphins as well. Don't you think it's kind of strange that Miami Hurricanes get blown out like crazy, and then today in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins literally blew out Houston, or at least in the first half. The first half, Miami was winning 41-0. The 41 that I'm talking about. Remember too, the Richie Incognito stuff. Richie Incognito, a former Nebraska player, the bullying scandal. Then they signed Ndamukong Suh, another Nebraska football player. They're both bullies or like the bad guys or whatever. Interesting. And when Richie Incognito played for the Buffalo Bills, and when he came back and played his first game back in Miami, Miami lost 14-41 to the Bills. It's right here, September 27th, which is also the last day that Pope Francis was in the United States in Philadelphia. Also found it kind of interesting that Miami beat Houston today. And Houston, I just seen an article about the train that got derailed because of the flooding or whatever. Never even looked that much into it yet. I just got home a little bit ago. But I noticed here too, it says Tannenhill got he got sacked 4 times for a loss of 41 yards. Also, another big thing that happened in this Miami game was Arian Foster tore his Achilles tendon. He's out for the season. Probably ruined his career. Interesting, he had 59 yards when he went out. 59's the kill number. Literally, his name in gematria adds up to 54. But look at Achilles tendon. Achilles tendon. 141 and 60. We'll check out his name here. 54. Interesting numbers to happen on today. Also, isn't it crazy in Major League Baseball then? It all ties back to the Cubs and Back to the Future and whatnot. And the Miami Marlins are the only team in the league this year that had 91 losses. I mean, I'm not going to talk that much about the 91. Maybe I'll point a few out if I can even find it here. Miami Marlins, 71 and 91. Both numbers I've talked about, but interesting, they lost with 91 losses. And I talked about how I think that's why the Cubs lost, because 91 is like the elimination kill number, and 19 is the good number, the mirror. So, just interesting. And I'm just going to end this part right here. I don't have enough time to squeeze in some other stuff I want to talk about in another minute. So, I'll just, see you in part 2. And if you don't understand everything I'm saying, you're going to have to go back and watch some of my previous videos. There's absolutely so much information to re-explain over and over. Sometimes it's really hard to get somebody who might be new to understand it. So, yep. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next video. So, see you in part 2.